By the turn of the century, cigarettes had become the most popular use of tobacco, overtaking pipes and chewing tobacco. Americans consumed about 8 billion cigarettes in 1910 alone. Reynolds, emboldened by his success with Prince Albert, decided to go head-to-head with his rival, Buck Duke.
R.J. Reynolds started out basically as a chewing tobacco manufacturer and evolves into a cigarette manufacturer when, through federal antitrust action, it becomes possible for various producers to make cigarettes.
In 1913, Reynolds test-marketed 4 cigarette brands: Reno, Osmond, Red Camel, and Camel. Initial consumer reaction was tepid, but when R.J. himself tried the unique Camel blend, he was so sure of its flavor that he decided to back the product with every cent he had. Reynolds launched the Camel brand with one of the most intensive marketing campaigns of its time.
Mr. Reynolds went to an advertising agency in Richmond, Virginia, and asked him to design his first pack. And he told them exactly what he wanted. He wanted the palm trees and the pyramids in the back. He wanted the very special Egyptian columns going up the sides. And the men had no idea what a camel looked like. They pulled it out of some dictionary or encyclopedia, and it was the homeliest camel I've ever seen in my life.
Luckily, the Barnum and Bailey Circus happened to be in town, and Reynolds sent his personal secretary and a photographer to investigate. There they found an uncooperative beast named Old Joe.
To get the right photograph, they swapped or switched the camel, and he threw up his head and threw up his tail, and that's when the photograph was made, and that is the camel on the pack today.
Introduced in 1913, the new Camels were an instant success, selling 435 million cigarettes in the first year and 2 billion the next.
He pushed these cigarettes through billboards, through every form of advertising known to man. Before he really got into the photography type advertising, it was mostly muslin banners and window hangers and tobacco shop setups and this type thing.
Camel tasted right. It was the right blend. The concept, the advertising, the whole business hit. You know, everything that we look back on it and say that was a success, those aren't accidents. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of good thinking, a lot of genius, and then all of a sudden, there's that extra 10% of luck and you're off. And I think that's what Camel was.
It was sold without coupons and without rebates. So many other cigarettes that were made by American Tobacco Company and other companies basically had all kinds of coupons there that you could trade back in for a penny here or 2 pennies there. Reynolds sold their cigarettes with no coupons, especially Camel cigarettes, and they became an ultimate winner.
Buck Duke was once again furious. Reynolds Camels had overtaken the #1 selling cigarette brand, Duke's own Lucky Strike. Then, as if to prove to Buck Duke that he was now his equal, R.J. built a grand estate in Winston, which he named Renolda. In true Gilded Age fashion, the estate included a church, school, and model farm, as well as the 60-room main house. In 1905, at the age of 55, he married Mary Catherine Smith. Together, they had 4 children, but for Reynolds, time with his new family would be short-lived. R.J. Reynolds died of pancreatic cancer on July 29, 1918, at the age of 68.
They say when he died, he was the richest man in North Carolina, and we could tell that because of the number of automobiles at the funeral. Something over 150, which was unheard of, unseen before that.
At the time of his death, Reynolds controlled 40% of the nation's cigarette business and employed 10,000 workers. Sales of Camels had reached 18 billion annually, half the cigarettes smoked in America. The 1920s belonged to Camel. Rudolph Valentino's chic was a matinee idol, and Camel's Middle Eastern mystique made it as much a symbol of the times as the hip flask and the Charleston. In 1921, a Camel advertising executive ran out of cigarettes while playing golf with some friends. Waiting for the caddy to return with a fresh pack, one of the golfers remarked that he'd walk a mile for a Camel. One of advertising's best-known slogans was born. While the R.J. Reynolds Company was booming on the success of Camels, Duke was back in Durham, working on establishing his legacy. In 1924, James B. Duke pledged $40 million to Trinity College, a small Methodist school in Durham. His plan was to turn it into a world-class university that would bear his name. But while an army of workmen toiled to build what his enemies called Duke's trump card in a campaign for sainthood, James Buchanan Duke fell ill.
He had bought a cottage in Newport, Rhode Island, one of the old Vanderbilt mansions, actually, for his wife, Nanlin. And he went there then, and while there, he became ill. And she thought he was going to get better, but he didn't get better, so they finally put him on his private railroad car and bring him to New York, and the doctors diagnosed pernicious anemia. So he dies then in October 1925.
Out of a fortune estimated at $300 million, his will left an additional $40 million to the university, and Duke was laid to rest in a vault in the school's chapel. With Duke's death, the patriarchs of America's tobacco empires were now gone. What had begun with poor farmers peddling tobacco out of rickety carts had grown into a huge multinational industry. Tobacco was big business. The legacy left by Duke and Reynolds would have a profound effect on American industry and politics in the years to come. But neither man could have ever imagined what the future held for the industry they had created.